There were a few rumors after the break of day came, whispers that were passed on from the lips of trader caravans as they traveled from settlement to settlement. Not many people would have believed it way back then. It sounded just like a legend out of an old western, too good to be true. A shadowy stranger wandering the wasteland, righting wrongs wherever he finds them. Then when the job's done and innocent people are safe once more, he walks off into the horizon without asking for so much as a thank you. Like we said, folks would have a hard time believing such a fanciful tale. Of course, that was before the sun started shining an anomalous light over the world. Nowadays, people might believe anything. The earliest days of this strange new world proved to be a learning experience for SCP-4494, otherwise known as the Specter. He was the physical embodiment of the very notion of fighting crime. Wherever injustice arose, he would appear to vanquish those that preyed on the innocent. While he usually manifested at night, he never used to have any trouble appearing in the daytime too, in the form of a shadowy figure wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a long, flowing coat that he could alter the length of for added dramatic flourish. The Specter's form absorbed almost all the light from the visible spectrum, but after day broke, the rules seemed to have changed. One day, the Specter had emerged to find the sunlight had become unbearable. Where he had once been a void of any and all light, he was now finding it impossible to manifest during daylight. The moment that the unrelenting light from the sun made contact with him, SCP-4494 would dissipate, yet he kept reappearing at night. It was like he was being pulled back into existence and was only able to re-manifest in the moonlight. Despite it being a reflection of the anomalous sunlight, that was seemingly enough to negate the effects it had of preventing SCP-4494 from reappearing. The same could not be said for any humans caught in the light though. A far worse fate awaited them. Even with much of mankind deformed into creatures that resembled melted wax, there were still pockets of survivors. And where there were human beings, there would be subsects that wanted to harm or exploit their fellow man. The world might have no governing bodies anymore, no law and order, but the Specter had realized that even in a lawless world, his work was not done. As long as there were survivors of the break of day, they still would need saving, not just from the fleshy hordes of SCP-001-A roaming the wastes, but saving from each other. Striding through the remains of the old world in the dead of night, his long cloak billowed out behind him. Its shadow almost seemed to blend with the darkness that surrounded the Specter. But on the horizon, there was a sight he didn't often see these days. Light. Not coming from the sun above nor the moon, but instead it lay ahead of him, a fire glowing not too far away. As he wandered closer, like an outlaw striding into town, SCP-4494 was presented with the ruins of a small settlement. Around him, shacks burned, their boarded-up windows broken to allow the cursed sunlight in. Everyone that was still alive normally kept themselves wrapped up head to toe to block out the sun, but there were clothes and protective goggles strewn all around, a larger pile of garments fueling a bonfire. SCP-4494 had witnessed the SCP-001-A creatures attacking humans, dragging them out into the light to be transformed into more anomalous abominations. But what had happened here didn't seem to be the work of those creatures. The Specter's suspicion were confirmed when he approached the town square to find a group of people who had all been melted into a fleshy mass. The instance of SCP-001-A paid the crime fighter little mind. It couldn't move very far. The few vaguely human shapes that protruded out of it looked like they were tethered to poles in the middle of the settlement. It didn't take much longer for SCP-4494 to figure out what had happened here. Someone had ransacked the settlement for some unknown reason. Maybe they wanted something. Maybe they were opportunists just looking to take advantage of this new post-apocalyptic world. Or perhaps they wanted to be cruel to these settlers. They had broken the barricades over the windows that blocked out the sunlight. They had trashed the ramshackle homesteads that these innocent settlers had been residing in. As SCP-4494 looked further, there looked to have been looting too. Food and water, medical supplies and ammunition. Not anything of use to be found. All that was left was what these raiders hadn't any need for. But as if all that hadn't been enough, as if robbing the settlers for what little livelihood they had left wasn't enough cruelty, the bandits had tethered the survivors to poles in the center of town. They had taken away their protective gear and left them at the mercy of the elements. And as the sun had crept higher into the sky and bathed the captive settlers in its unforgiving light, they had melted into an SCP-001-A creature. Turning away from the town, the Specter did his best to quell his rage. He wandered in the direction of the next settlement. Something was drawing him there. He could feel the pull of the wrongdoers that had left this carnage in their wake. He would find them, and they would pay for what they had done. There was nothing he could do for their last victims. They had already been turned by the sunlight. But if anyone could save the next group of survivors, it was him. As the wind howled, the shadowy figures cloaked flapped in the breeze. The next settlement looked similar to the last, although still intact. Shacks built from sheets of corrugated iron and other scrap metal, all welded together so that not even as little as a tiny beam of sunlight could bleed through. As he stepped toward the boundary of the settlement, a muzzle flashed, accompanied by the deafening echo of a gunshot that reverberated all around. Someone had tried to shoot at the Specter, narrowly missing. The bullet whizzed past his head, not that it would have harmed him anyway. "Fear not," he declared. "You can hold your fire. I mean you no harm." "You aren't with the Slivers?" a voice called in the nightly dark. "If you mean the evildoers that left that last settlement over a smoldering ruin, then no, I'm not," the Specter replied. Hearing this, he spotted movement on one of the shack's rooftops. A sharpshooter carrying a worn old rifle stood up, covered in layers of protection from the transformative effects of the sun's light reflected off the moon. "Well, you aren't dressed like they are, I'll give you that," the sharpshooter called. "Can barely make you out wearing all those dark clothes, mister. But if you're looking to trade, I'm afraid your timing couldn't be much worse." "Tell me," replied the Specter bluntly. "The criminals that terrorized the other settlement, they've been here too?" "Yes, sir," the man answered. "Said they'd be back tonight, too." "I've come to help, to do away with those that would inflict justice on the innocent," SCP-4494 explained in his typically dramatic cadence. "You call them slivers, yes?" "Well, they call themselves that," the sharpshooter said, "on account of their choice in outfits. They look ridiculous, but they've covered their protective clothing in slivers of metal and glass. That way they're not only protected from light, but their clothes reflected back at other people too." "Dastardly villains taking advantage of what has befallen the sun," the Specter cursed the bandits. "Why are they yet to pillage your settlement? You said they intended to return?" "Well, that's what they threatened earlier. A lot of them have been ransacking any settlement they can't shake down. They showed up here in their stupid sparkling outfits and demanded we hand over a half of all of our food, water, and antibiotics. They call it their sunshine tax. According to them, if we didn't meet their demands, they'd destroy the town. We didn't know to take them seriously until we saw the fire over there on the horizon." For a moment, the Specter fell silent. His cloak had slowed, waving gently now the winds had died down. But in contrast, his anger had never been higher. "Who are you anyway, mister?" the sharpshooter asked. "Never got your name." "My name is the Specter, a name these vagabonds will soon know well. For tonight, they will pay the price for their crimes." "No offense, Mr. Specter, but look around. World's gone to hell, ain't no justice anymore. What price are you expecting to make them pay?" "Simple," SCP-4494 answered. "The price is they now have to face me." An hour later, the settlement was quiet. The sharpshooter was still at his post, scanning the area nearby for signs of movement. Sure enough, he spotted something. A group of figures approaching, the moonlight glinting off their metallic outfits, revealing their position as they drew closer and closer to the makeshift town. The slivers were coming, but there would be something else waiting for them when they made their way into the settlement. The other settlers were awake, despite how late it was, wearing their protective layers and peeking through cracked doors, only to slam them shut as the glimmering gang crossed the threshold into their ramshackle home. The slivers whooped and jeered, brandishing weapons and threatening the settlers to show themselves before the bandits would break into their shacks and do to them what they'd done to their neighbors at the other town. But as one of the slivers approached the door of a shack and began pounding his boot against the metal door, something reached out of the shadows and grabbed him. In fact, it wasn't coming from the shadows. It was the shadows. Fists shrouded in darkness struck the remorseless raider. Even with the protective layers covering his face, the sliver could feel himself being bruised by the beating. The Specter struck once more, knocking the wrongdoer unconscious and wrenching the reflective metals from his outfit, shattering them underfoot. The other slivers panicked, one drawing a handgun and firing. The shots were useless. All they did was illuminate the silhouette of a dark-cloaked figure walking closer and closer, ready to make them suffer for their crimes. It was dusk by the time the Specter had beaten the group of bandits, stripping them of their distinctive reflective pieces. Each one of the slivers had been beaten into submission, suffering broken ribs, black eyes, and missing teeth. With the danger over, the sharpshooter and the other settlers had emerged from their hiding places, all eager to weigh in on how best to punish the bandits. Many yelled that they should be strung up without their protective gear so that the sun melted them into an SCP-001-A. But the Specter interjected, urging the settlers not to sink to the level of the criminals they had been harassed by. Instead, he turned to the defeated slivers. "Turn over half of your food, water, and medical supplies to these people," SCP-4494 demanded in a frighteningly calm voice. "Then leave, walk into these wastes, and don't come back." The slivers agreed and fled, running as fast as they could away from the town. "Why'd you let them go?" the sharpshooter asked. "These are uncertain times," the Specter replied, noticing the sun was creeping over the horizon. It'd be time for him to go soon. "In the face of hardship, it can be easy to lose our way. Justice has always been blind, not blinded by the sunlight, but blind to prevent bias." "The slivers might come back, though," the man said, adding, "if they can even survive with what you left them." "Maybe they'll live out there," SCP-4494 responded. "Then again, perhaps not. But they have a chance. That is justice. In a time without law, it's the best we can offer." "And if they carry on raiding folks?" "If they harm others, if they want to waste the chance they've been given, then that is their choice. But they know if they refuse to change, then they will answer to the Specter." With that, the shadowy crime fighter walked away from the settlement. The unforgiving light of the sun made him fade as he sauntered off like an old gunslinger. But he would be back. As long as people needed saving, he would always be back. Want to own an SCP of your own? Go to scpswag.com for premium anomalous merchandise. Now go and check out SCP-001 When Day Breaks, and When Day Breaks SCP-343 for more When Day Breaks tales.